Welcome back to another episode of Dueker Sports. I am joined, as always, by Christian Lunday. And tomorrow is the not really official start of the new league year, but it is for me because it is the NFL Combine. It's here. It's where the top college prospects get to put their skills on display in front of everybody. It's on national TV. Unfortunately, I won't be able to watch it because I'm stuck in Idaho without TV. But that's okay because thank God for the internet and for being able to watch things and highlights and all of that. But Christian and I were thinking today about what we want to talk about, and Christian came up with the idea of the top 5 players we are most excited to see at the combine starting tomorrow. So we each made a list. Now we said top 5, but then I went with 6, and so Christian decided that he deserves 6 as well. So we're giving you our top 6 players that we're excited to see at the combine tomorrow. And okay, I'll just go ahead and get it started. We're going to count you down from 6 all the way to 1. So my number 6 player is Will Levis. So let me start this off by saying I will be honest, when it comes to NFL Combine, I am far more interested in offensive players. They're more fun to watch at the combine. I honestly, this will be the first time in probably 10 years at least that I have not watched the combine. So it's hurting me severely. I don't even know if Christian knows how much I watch the combine, but I actually take notes on almost every single player. And I think it's like 23 hours of footage. I watch all 23 hours and I take notes on every single player. My favorite position group, this is going to surprise people, offensive linemen. They're a lot of fun to watch. I love their drills. But I've got a quarterback number 6 here. And I'm going to start off by saying there's going to be several quarterbacks on my list. They're towards the bottom because I'm not all that impressed with this year's quarterback class. I know that's like the whole talk. But outside of Bryce Young, who's not on my list because he's not even participating at the NFL Combine, outside of Bryce Young, I think there's a big gap between him and number 2, which is C.J. Stroud, would be my number 2 quarterback to watch. But my number 1 and number 3 quarterbacks, in my opinion, aren't even going to be competing at the combine. But so Will Levis is my number 1. So I want to break down a few things. I want to talk about stats. Here's why I'm concerned about him. I'll tell you why I'm concerned, and then I'll tell you why I'm excited. So this year he threw 19 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, 2,406 yards. He was 35th in the nation in quarterback rating, which isn't terrible. He had 46 touchdowns and 25 interceptions over the course of his entire career. Again, it's not terrible, but it's not what I would expect from someone who's garnering a lot of top 10 quarterback conversations. When I watched him play, I thought he was pretty good. But I don't know. I don't see someone to me who looks like he can become a franchise quarterback. There's a few things I like about him. I think he's athletic. He's not going to blow anyone's minds with his athleticism, but he's like decently athletic. He does have great arm strength. His question mark is his biggest one is his accuracy. It's not that it doesn't exist. It's just inconsistent. And I went on NFL.com. I don't always trust their draft rankings. I actually every year do this funny thing where I look at like Bleacher Report, and then I go to NFL.com, I go to ESPN, I go to CBS, and I write down all of their rankings for each player. And then I create like an averages of the top like 200 players. And NFL.com actually last year was one of the most accurate, so they're slowly regaining my trust. But the one thing that I do like that they do is the comparisons. And I love when I watch the combine, I always am writing down comparisons. This is what they put for Will Levis. They said Jay Cutler. I don't know how I feel about that. When you're talking about like just the throwing of Will Levis, I'm like, okay, I can kind of see that. Jay Cutler was more mobile early in his career than probably most people thought or think that he was. But I thought it was an interesting comparison. I didn't write down a comparison for every player, but ones that I found interesting. And I can kind of see where they're getting that comparison. But to me, this guy, like, and this is the issue with so many of these quarterbacks. I think they're all projects. Um, and I don't think it's any different for him. And so I've got him number 6. I'm excited because to me, he has to wow people with his athleticism. If he wants to be a lock in the top 10, we're not going to see what happened last year where no quarterbacks go in the first round. That's not going to happen again. My guess is you'll see at least 3 quarterbacks going in the first round. And 2 are a lock to be top 10, probably top 5. I think there are going to be some trades. I'm actually going to talk about that at the very end of my spill. But yeah, I think there'll be some trades, but it'll be very interesting to see where these quarterbacks fall. But I think he's a project, which leads me to another project, which is a number 5 player. It is Anthony Richardson. So Anthony Richardson is the quarterback from Florida. Talk about another project. This is a big one. I think he might even be a bigger project than Will Levis. That being said, I think he has a much higher ceiling than he does. I'm seeing people starting to say that he could be the number 1 pick in the draft, which is absurd and would be ignorant. It would just be plain ignorant because this guy is not ready. Mark my words. You start this guy from day 1, it's going to be, I'll say this in the clean version, crap show. It's going to be a crap show if you put this guy day 1. It's going to be disgusting. He's going to turn the ball over like crazy. And I'm going to tell you why. So looking at this year, he had 2,549 yards passing, 17 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. That's not impressive to me at all. Now, however, he did have 654 rushing yards and 9 touchdowns, which is impressive, especially college statistics where you lose yards for taking a sack, which I think is kind of dumb, but whatever. But yeah, 659 yards rushing, 9 touchdowns. This guy is gigantic too. I think let me look it up right now. Yeah, 6'4", 232 pounds. The comparison they gave for him, and this one I think is a good comparison. It's Cam Newton. So now Cam Newton was 6'5", 245, and he ran a 4.59. I don't think that Anthony Richardson is as powerful as Cam Newton. To me, Cam Newton is the most powerful rusher as a quarterback I've ever seen. The dude looked like a power back at times coming out of the backfield. Anthony Richardson, to me, concerns me because his first 2 years he played were terrible. He had 7 touchdowns and 6 interceptions on just 66 pass attempts. He's throwing an interception every 11 attempts, which I'm telling you that will translate to the. I don't know if he'll throw it every 11 attempts, but that translates to the NFL. That tells me there's an issue here. I'm really excited. I've got number 5, number 1. Like I said, I think his ceiling is higher than Will Levis. I also think that his athleticism is going to be very I don't know if I would say mind blowing, but I want to see Cam Newton ran a 4.59. To me, especially if he wants to go number 1 in the draft, he better run a low 4.5. He better be very close to a 4.5 flat if he wants to be the number 1 pick in the draft. Otherwise, I don't know why you would do it. I really don't. Even at a 4.5 flat, I'm like, that's impressive. That's very impressive. But he needs to be running close to a 4.5 flat. And even then, I would never draft this guy number 1 overall because I don't think he's going to be a franchise quarterback. And that continues to be my problem with these quarterbacks. He's big, he's strong, he's got a powerful arm. But as with most quarterbacks who rely a lot on their legs, his footwork in the pocket, not great. His accuracy is at times errs on the side of horrendous, to be quite frank. He misses some pretty awful throws, some easy throws. That being said, I've also seen him hit the deep ball several times, and it looked very nice. But overall, I'm very concerned about what I see from him. And then, so that's going to bring me to another quarterback. This will be my last quarterback that's on my list. That's going to be C.J. Stroud. So C.J. Stroud is a quarterback, obviously, from Ohio State. He is my number 2 ranked quarterback. I think that he's phenomenal in comparison to these other quarterbacks. My concern, and I'm going to get to this probably in a little bit. I'm having Christian do some research for me right now. It's the Ohio State quarterbacks that get drafted in the first round. I'm having him look up a list for me right now because we're gonna do this live. They just don't pan out, quite frankly. Even when you think they're gonna pan out, they don't pan out. But he reminds me of statistically of Dwayne Haskins. Rest in peace, Dwayne Haskins. However, I was sold on Dwayne Haskins when he was coming into the league. I said this guy is different than all the Ohio State quarterbacks that came before him because to me he had the ability to stand in the pocket and to make big throws. He had a powerful arm. I thought that he looked pretty accurate in college. The dude was throwing for over 5,000 yards. He looked phenomenal. I look at CJ Stroud and I see the same thing. I don't know. I'm like, here we go again because I really thought Dwayne Haskins was going to be a stud. I think it was Dwayne Haskins it was against Clemson, and I'm having a hard time remembering now exactly what his stat line was, but he absolutely tore up Clemson in the bowl game. That actually might have been Justin Fields. Yeah, I think that was Justin Fields. But regardless, I think Dwayne Haskins also dominated the playoffs that year, but the dude threw over 5,000 yards. CJ Stroud, this is what impresses me. He doesn't turn the ball over. He does a great job of being careful with the ball. He threw 85 touchdowns to only, 12? Yeah, 12 interceptions. 85 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. That's phenomenal. That's absolutely phenomenal. He separated his shoulder this year. Opening game. He led the league in quarterback rating, or led the whole nation. There are so many freaking college quarterbacks. Will Levis, here's a guy, top 10 prospect in the league. They're saying he was 35th. This guy with a separated shoulder comes in. He's banged up all year. He leads the league in quarterback rating. He was second a year ago. And I think last year was probably his more impressive year. But do you have the list of Ohio State quarterbacks in the first round?
I do. There are only 4 first-round Ohio State quarterbacks. Don Scott in 1941, Art Schlichter in 1982, Dwayne Haskins in 2019, and then Justin Fields.
Dwayne Haskins didn't pan out. I'm also thinking of I can't think of anyone's names right now. They're blanking me. But the guy that got drafted by the Ravens, he played in the league for a really long time. But I don't know. I can't think of their names, but I guess that's not that important. But there are at least 3 other quarterbacks that were big names coming out of Ohio State that did not pan out. Justin Fields, I actually am very excited about Justin Fields. I think the ceiling is extremely high for him. I don't know what happened with Dwayne Haskins whenever he was playing. I heard a lot of people say that he just didn't have the passion for the game. And then, mental ability. But CJ Stroud, call me crazy. I'm going down in the hole again. I'm like, I like what I see when I watch this guy play. So fool me once, twice, 3, 6 times. I don't care. I like CJ Stroud. If I'm an NFL head coach or a general manager, that's my number 2 quarterback. Bryce Young is by far the best, in my opinion. Number 2 is CJ Stroud. Number 3 is Hendon Hooker, who obviously he's recovering from a torn ACL. He won't be at the combine. I actually like him better than I like Anthony Richardson or Will Levis. I don't know if that's a hot take, but I like him a lot better. I thought it was really funny. I saw them say that his comparison, I don't agree with this one at all, but his comparison was Desmond Ridder, which is funny they say that because I also really liked Desmond Ridder last year. I had him ranked as, I think, my number 2 quarterback. So I understand that, like, Hendon Hooker probably, I don't know if he's even going to, he tore his ACL in December. So even if he's eligible to play, it won't be till the end of the year. I don't think you rush a quarterback back from an ACL injury like that. I still think that he's worthy of at least being a high second-round draft pick, if not at the back end of the first round. I think that someone needs to draft him, let him sit for a year, just have him bury himself in the playbook. He's not going to play, so just bury yourself, learn the system. And then I think he could actually surprise a lot of people coming out year 2. CJ Stroud, pass efficiency is like the number 1 thing with him. I love the way he throws the ball. I think he can wow a lot of people, especially when you're comparing him to who else is throwing at this event. I think he could be considered, well, hands down. I think Anthony Richardson is not going to be considered for a candidate for the number 1 overall pick after the combine. I think it'll be between Bryce Young and it will be between him and CJ Stroud. I actually think a defensive player should be drafted first, but I guarantee you the Bears are going to trade down. I see they've already said that they would love to trade down. I see all the mock drafts are starting to say they're going to trade down. So I think there's going to be a run on quarterbacks right at the beginning of this draft. That means that someone's going to be very happy because there are some dang good defensive players in this draft. Unfortunately, I haven't named one yet, and nor will I for my next player, because my next player is Jalen Hyatt. So I honestly considered putting him number one. It took a lot out of me not to do it, because I watched Tennessee play Alabama. I watched this guy get 6 catches, 207 yards, and 5 touchdowns against the king of college football. He is phenomenal. His ability to track the deep ball is absurd. I don't know. Like, I guess it's just his vision, honestly, down the field. He finds a way to get open seemingly on every single play. He's very hard to cover. His comparison I saw was Deshaun Jackson. I will be very surprised to see him run. I know he's fast, but I think he's, to me, which I see everyone saying, he has sneaky speed. He doesn't look as fast as he actually is. I hope that's true for him, because when I watch him run, he doesn't look that. He looks fast, but he doesn't look freaky fast. I think he's going to run in the low 4.4s. Now, if he runs in the 4.3s, the guy probably is going to be a top 10 pick. If he just knocks because he has the ability to knock top off the defense. I like the comparison to Deshaun Jackson because of his ability to track the deep ball. That's what I think is going to make him special in this league. That being said, he had 67 catches, 1,267 yards, which was 5th best in college football last year. He had 18.9 yards per catch. Now, that was 13th of all the players. However, if you look at just players who had at least 55 catches, he's number one. He's not that proves to me that he's better than the rest of the guys ahead of him, because not only is he fast and able to run deep routes, he's able to win on a consistent rate. He had 67 catches and average basically 19 yards a catch, which is absolutely crazy when you consider the fact the dude plays in the SEC, which is the closest talent to the National Football League you can find anywhere in the world. So I am super excited about Jalen Hyatt. I can't wait to see what he does at the combine. I can't wait to see what he runs on the 40 time. And then they do a lot of, I think it's vanity metrics when you look at these guys at the combine sometimes, because they're going to try to show off the quarterback's arms. So they have them run so many streak routes. Well, I'll tell you right now, Jalen Hyatt's going to make a lot of quarterbacks look really good. So Anthony Richardson's hoping he gets paired with him. But I think Jalen Hyatt is going to be a very exciting player to watch at this week's combine. That's why I've got number 3. Number 2, I'm going to be honest about this one. It's Bijan Robinson. There's a little bit of bias playing in this. I freaking love watching this guy play. He is a dominant running back. He's one of the more powerful running backs that I've seen in a while. He's just so consistent. It's like he does everything is right. His ability to read and find the hole is amazing. I think he's a decent receiver. He has ability to be a receiver. He did have 314 receiving yards this year. I think that if he can develop that even more, this guy could become one of the most dangerous running backs in the National Football League. His explosiveness is just out of this world. He had 1,580 rushing yards, which was 6th best in the nation last year. He also had 6.1 yards per carry, which is ridiculous. It only ranked 32nd, but I don't care. That's still pretty good. He had 18 rushing touchdowns, which was top 5. Like I said, he had 314 receiving yards. He had 8.2 yards per carry as a true freshman. He broke Texas's all-time record, 8.2 yards per carry. That's just absolutely insane. He won the Doak Walker Award for the top running back in the country. He's a first-team All-American. What else can I say about the guy? And I see a lot of people talking about the Eagles getting him, because I'm hearing that the Eagles are probably not going to bring back Miles Sanders, which I don't love, because I do love Miles Sanders and he loves Philadelphia. But I think it's going to come down to he's going to want too much money for the Eagles to want to bring him back. But he's mentioned the possibility of taking a hometown discount. It'll have to be a pretty big one. But if that is the case, the Eagles have 2 first-round picks. I wouldn't normally expect a team to take a running back in the first round, but I could see it happening this year because Bijan Robinson checks every box that you could possibly want for a running back coming into the NFL. I think he comes in year one. I think he's a top 10 running back from day one in the National Football League. That's how good I think this guy's going to be. So that's why I got him number 2. I don't know. I'm excited to see what he does at the combine, just because I want to see if he can check the rest of the boxes that we've yet to see. But I have a lot of hope in this guy. I think he's going to be freaking phenomenal. My former boss and friend Kim Turk is a huge Texas fan. She's also a huge Chiefs fan. She's one of the few people who I would answer the phone call for after the Super Bowl when the Eagles lost. But she called me, and then we started talking already about the draft because she's kind of like Christian and I. That's just what she does. She eats, breathes, and sleeps football. And she's like, "What do you think about Bijan Robinson?" And I'm like, "Well, he's one of my favorite players in the draft. I love watching him play. I'm super excited to see what he does this week. I can't wait for the draft and see where he goes. I would still doubt he goes to the Eagles, but if I think the Eagles are one of the teams that would consider taking a running back in the first round, which takes me to my number 1 player to watch in this week's combine. It's actually a defensive player, folks. It's Will Anderson Jr., the edge from Alabama. He actually, according to NFL.com, is the second-rated player in the entire draft. That being said, I think he's going to be the top player that is participating at the combine. Obviously, defensive tackle from Georgia gets in. There's like the whole situation that I won't get into, but it came out today. I hope it's not true. He says it's not true, but we'll see. It sounds like it's true. So that could play some major factors in this year's draft, and obviously he won't be participating at the combine tomorrow. So that leaves Will Anderson. I think Will Anderson is going to be the best player at the combine without a doubt. So this year he had 10 sacks, which tied for 10th best in the nation. A year ago, he led the nation in sacks with 17 and a half. I saw a comparison with him and DeMarcus Ware, which I think when I see him playing at the college level, I wasn't seeing that. But I actually do see this in the NFL because of what he's going to be doing. So I don't think he was a great system fit for Alabama. I think they kind of put him out of his role. He'll be a 3-4 outside linebacker for sure in the National Football League, and I think he's going to be amazing. I'm seeing a lot of people saying that the Chicago Bears are a likely landing spot for him, and I think that'd be an amazing fit. I will never not think defense when I think the Chicago Bears. So I could see them. I really think the Bears will trade back somewhere. I think they'll probably stay in the top 5. I think they could possibly trade back and still get Will Anderson. If they do that, I will give them immediately. I don't even care what they do the rest of the draft. I'm giving them an A+ because I assume that they will get at least 2 first-round picks and then some to trade back, given the quarterback class and how many quarterback-needy teams there are. And I think they could trade back and still get arguably the best player in the draft, which would be insane for them. This guy, he was a 2-time Bronco Nagurski award winner. That means he's the top defensive player in all of college football. The dude won it 2 times in a row. That's insane. I'm super excited to see. I think that it'll be interesting to see if he checks the boxes at this combine. I think the value of edge rushers far more than it is for interior defensive linemen. I think he has the possibility of going number 1. I think he will check the boxes. I think he cements himself as a number 1 player in this year's draft. It'll be interesting because I fall in love with pass rushers. That's the thing about defense at the combine. You see these guys, they are the most impressive group physically to watch is edge rushers because you see the running backs and the wide receivers, yeah, they're doing crazy things. Wide receivers are running 4.3s or 4.2s. You see their amazing verticals. It's way more impressive to me to see a guy that's 240, 250, 260 turning a corner on a dime, running like 4.5 40s. Sometimes they run in the 4.4s, which is just stupid. They're pure muscle. These guys are giants. They're beasts. I think Will Anderson's going to be the guy to watch, and he's going to be the guy that everyone's comparing themselves to at the combine. I know that he's an athletic freak. It'll be interesting to see exactly how athletic he is when it matters the most at the combine. That's whenever you really want to be the workout warrior and show off. But like I said, I'm super excited. I think all 6 of these guys will be fun to watch. There are so many running backs. When I looked, I think running back will be the most fun position group to watch this year because offensive linemen, the drills are great, but I think it's a deep class. It's not necessarily a super talented class when I look at the linemen. But I think running back, there are several running backs in this year's draft. I mean, I was looking at, I think I had like 6 written down that I think can make a day one impact in the National Football League. So I'm super excited to watch the running backs perform. But yeah, that's my top 6 players to watch in this year's combine. And now we get to hear from the one and only Christian Lunday.
Hey, that was really good list. Expert analysis on all your picks. I'm gonna start at number 6. Mine is actually Will Anderson Jr. I'm going to echo the sentiment that you have. I think he actually is the best player in this year's draft. I think he can play the 3 technique well. I think he can play the 4 technique well. I do think he is most comfortable at outside linebacker. 3 technique is playing on the outside shoulder of the guard position. So that's more on an interior defensive line set, whereas the 4 technique in a 3-4 defense is going to be playing further outside on the tackle spot. But I do think he's most comfortable outside linebacker. I think that he's super explosive. His production level is probably the second best pass rushing production behind Hall of Famer Derek Thomas. He actually is second in school career sacks behind Derek Thomas with 34 and a half. He's an athletic freak. He's a monster. I don't think I don't think I need to say more. I think you broke it down very eloquently. I do think this guy is the best player in the draft. If the Bears aren't going to trade down, uh, get this guy. You got to replace Khalil Mack. You traded him away. You don't really have anyone who can consistently rush the passer on the Bears defense. Get you a guy who can get after the quarterback because people who can get after the quarterback are extremely valuable. Probably second behind your quarterback. It's a dog eat dog world out there, and if you don't have dogs that eat the other dogs, you're screwed. Um, and then here we go. Number 5, Zay Flowers from Boston College. He's a wide receiver. Here's my problem with the wide receiving class this year. There's a lot of small, fast guys. Zay Flowers is one of those small, fast guys. He's 5'10, 172 pounds, give or take a few pounds, but the production's there. He had 1,077 yards receiving this year. He had 12 touchdowns, 78 catches. For a guy who's 170 pounds and 5'10", that's really good production. I know he's not in the strongest division, the strongest conference in college football, but given his size, great production. I'm excited for this because I'm excited to see how fast he is. I know that he put on some weight. He definitely put on some weight. I saw a before and after photo on Twitter the other day. He's added like 10 to 15 pounds of muscle. Tyreek Hill is 5'10", and he is a chiseled brick house. There is not an ounce of fat on that man. If you're going to be small, you need to be small like Tyreek Hill, where you are just you're just a ball. You're one giant muscle. You don't even have other muscles. You're just one muscle yourself. Zay Flowers, I want to see his speed. This is what I'm most looking for. He has incredible hands, good ball skills, route running, intermediate to above average. Um, but I want to see his speed. I want a number. I want to see how fast and how well he can separate from other defenders. You're not going to be able to see how well he gets off press and man coverage or what he does in the zone. That's going to be all tape. But for the combine specifically, I want to see his 40 time and his explosion, his broad jump and high jump. If those are all stellar numbers, I think he improves his draft stock, and I think people look past his small size. This
Thanks a
next
lot.
one,
I think a lot of people undervalue the broad jump at the
I
NFL
think they
Combine.
do.
I
Yes.
watched sports science, and they're like for running backs, that's one of the top things I look at. Like as long as a lot of the running backs are going to run 4.5s, and if you're really fast, 4.4s. But if you can run like in the 4.5s and then have like a top 5 broad jump amongst your group, then you immediately move to the top of my list because that's I think the best indicator for explosion,
Yep.
especially
Exactly.
for running backs. because that shows your power from like a dead standstill. It's like, hey, we hand you the ball. What can you do immediately? Because they're in the NFL, you may have to do something very immediately when you touch the ball. And I think there have been a lot. I can't remember who all they were talking about, but there's an excellent episode. I know Alvin Kamara was the guy that had showing it in that one, and I fell in love with him coming out of college. But yeah, I totally agree with you. Broad jump, underrated metric.
Speaking of explosiveness, I think this is going to be the most explosive running back given his size uh, in the draft this year. It's Jahmyr Gibbs. So he was a transfer from Georgia Tech. He only had like 900 rushing yards this season, but total scrimmage yards was 1,370. He had 10 touchdowns this year. I think he got limited touches with Alabama, but with those limited touches, there were no famines. It was all feast. This guy, I think, is going to be one of the most explosive players in this year's draft. He's 5'11", 6 feet tall, give or take, 200 pounds. I think he's going to run a 4.3 40-yard dash. I'm excited to see this guy. He's a physical freak. I think if he runs at a 4.3, he's going to improve his draft stock. He might go, I think some rankings have him as the 20th ranked player in this year's draft. It's going to be hard for teams to buy in on a running back of his caliber in the first round, given his lack of production throughout his collegiate career. But if he tears it up at the combine this weekend, you're looking at a fast rising draft stock. Jahmyr, I think he's just exciting to me. Just like we were talking about the broad jump, if you have a weak broad jump, your acceleration is probably going to be weak as well. If you have a strong broad jump, just like Dylan said earlier, you're going to be able to take off immediately and hit top speed immediately because of the amount of force you're generating against the ground to move your body. I think Jahmyr Gibbs is going to be a strong. He's going to be strong. He's going to be fast. I'm so excited to watch his combine performance this weekend. Which brings me to my number three. That's Anthony Richardson. Anthony Richardson, to me, um, is probably the most intriguing quarterback prospect out of all the quarterbacks this year because I actually think he has the highest ceiling. I'm not a huge believer in Bryce Young because I don't believe in Bryce Young's height. And CJ Stroud, up in the air. I don't think typically Ohio State quarterbacks translate very well. I think CJ Stroud is probably going to be the most complete quarterback coming out of Ohio State in a long time. But I think Anthony Richardson is. I think his ceiling is so high. Do I think he's a project? Yes. Do I think he's worth a first round, a first overall pick? Absolutely not. But I think he's got a huge arm. I'm excited to see his speed. I literally want to see how far he can throw it. He's got a rocket arm.
He
I want to
does.
see how fast he runs. I'm with you, Dylan. A low 4.5, a high 4.4, and you instantly probably make yourself a first rounder, a lock in the first
Oh yeah,
32 picks of the draft. Um, I think his tape left a lot to be desired, but there were also several plays where you're like, my God, how did he do that? And I don't think that's the same with some of these other players in the draft, especially at his position. I've seen some throws that are just out of this world. His athleticism is off the charts. It just pops off the tape for me. But I do think he's definitely a project. I think the physical attributes are there, but I think the biggest hurdle with quarterback is not physical attributes. We've seen average athletes come in and dice teams up, and that's because they have something up here. I want to know if Anthony Richardson also has something up here, and I don't think that will be able to, become apparent at the combine. But I'm looking forward to seeing his physical performance because I think it's going to be off the charts. Uh, Speaking of off the charts, Bijan Robinson is my number two prospect that I'm excited to watch this weekend. The reason why is for everything Dylan said. This guy, 1,580 yards rushing, 18 tubs. Um, Something that I know from watching Marshall Falk. Marshall Falk talked about this a long time ago, and it's how quickly the running back position is how quickly you can translate what you see with your eyes to your feet. And Bijan Robinson hits the hole. He reads the offensive line extremely well. He's extremely explosive, And when he hits the hole, he hits it with his full force. He's 220 pounds. Um, I've seen some listings at 215, 220. Doesn't matter. He's a huge guy. He's fast. He's strong. He's elusive. I think he's going to be fit in multiple schemes. If you want to stretch, if you want to run stretch plays, most of your carries for your running backs, he's going to be able to do that. If you want to do an inside zone or a one cut read, he's going to be able to do that. He's going to be able to fit in almost any offense. But I do think he has one glaring hole, and it's not because he's incapable. It's because I just don't think they used him that much at Texas, and that's catching the football. I do think he's capable of doing it. Isaiah Pacheco is an example of someone who hardly ever caught the football in his collegiate career, but as soon as they stuck him out there in pro day drills, in the combine, in practice, he could catch the football and he could run routes. They just didn't use it that much. And why would you if you got a guy like Bijan who can just run down people's throats all day long without getting tired? So I want to see his 40 time. I want to see his broad jump, and I want to see him catch the football at the combine and their running back passing drills. And if those pop off the page, probably a lock top 15 pick, if not top 10. I think someone will take a flyer on him that's running back needy in the high first round or the low first round, however you're looking at it. And this brings me to my number one prospect that I'm excited to watch this weekend. And I think if he puts it together, I think he's going to be the second highest wide receiving grade that I have this year, and that's Quentin Johnson from TCU. This guy is 6'4", 212 pounds. I think if my concerns are, I want to see him run the full route tree. I want to see how deep he sinks his hips whenever he's making cuts, making um, you know basically making moves on the inside or outside the hash marks, trying to separate from wide receivers or from cornerbacks. I want to see his straight line speed. This is the biggest one, and I'm curious because he's absolutely explosive at TCU. You saw it in the college football playoffs. He's so big. Often looks like he's an actual man amongst little kids because of how big he is and the way he moves for his size is very rare. Um, so I want to see his broad jump. I want to see his 40-yard dash. I want to see him run multiple routes at the combine. And if I'm any of the quarterbacks trying to show off my arm strength, I'm hoping this guy is actually going to be my wide receiver because his catch radius is off the charts. I can't wait till all of the relative athletic matrix scores come out because I think Quentin's is going to be near the top depending on his shuttle times, which is another important metric for me, especially when you get taller, heftier wide receivers. If their shuttle times are slow, odds are they're going to be slow coming in and out of their breaks, which means they're not going to get separation, and that's usually going to lead to mediocre NFL careers. It's going to be hard for them to actually start on a weekly basis for NFL teams. Quentin Johnson's performance, I think, if it's solid, if he runs a very low 4.4 or a super high 4.3 or even lower than that, his shuttle times are decent. I think he'll be right behind Jordan Addison as my number 2 wide receiver in this year's draft.
So one thing about Quentin Johnson that you were talking about. So I used to always, when I was younger and I was taking notes, I always look for size, speed, and jumping ability combinations because I was trying to find the next Calvin Johnson. I've died down a little bit on that because I've had a lot of guys in the past, like Chase Claypool was obviously like a dream come true. I'm like, there he is. This could be him. But there, I don't even know if I could show you the list of guys that I've thought this could be it. But and then we talk about shuttle, which I do totally agree. There's another drill. I think it all day long. It shows their ability to get in and out of routes, which is extremely important. Unless if you're your DK Metcalf, I guess, because that dude has slower shuttle time than Tom Brady, and he's a pretty good NFL wide receiver. I don't think I'd say he's top 5, but he's at least fringe top 10 at worst. But he is a really good wide receiver and had a horrible shell time. So that's another thing that's important to remember when you watch the combine. Sometimes that happens, and I don't know why, but like these numbers are nice, but really you're looking to check the boxes. That's why, like, I mean, obviously, if I was going to the NFL, I would not want to participate in the combine because my numbers would be terrible. But whenever a guy doesn't participate in the combine, that's what I think. I'm like, what are you hiding? Because to me, that's what I think. I'd be very reluctant, especially the thing that really ticks me off the most is when quarterbacks do not throw. If you aren't willing to throw at the NFL Combine, I don't understand. It doesn't make any sense to me. Like unless if you're just physically unable to throw, it does not make sense to me. I hate when quarterbacks do not throw at the combine. Like it's a huge knock on their talent to me when they avoid throwing because I'm like, once again, what are you hiding? So it'll be interesting. Another thing that I was looking up while you were talking was I'm like to prove my point about these Ohio State quarterbacks. These are Troy Smith is I remembered his name before I even as soon as you started talking. But Troy Smith, Terrell Pryor, Braxton Miller, Cardell Jones, JT Barrett, and Dwayne Haskins all were phenomenal quarterbacks at Ohio State. I actually root for Ohio State quite a bit. Of the teams that dominate college football, I think they're one of the most fun teams to watch every single year. So I really enjoy watching the playoffs. I actually saw every single one of those guys, minus Troy Smith. I didn't watch him play, but I watched all those other guys play a lot, and none of them translated to the NFL level. Troy Smith was probably the best of that group, and he definitely did not translate. Justin Fields is really the only guy that did. So CJ Stroud is hoping to create a new trend for Ohio State quarterbacks here and follow in Justin Fields' footsteps. And I know a lot of Bears fans who still are not happy with Justin Fields because they say he can't throw the ball. But yes, for anyone, I think you can tell a real football buff by whether or not they watch the combine. Because I'll be honest, like by hour 23, I'm pretty well done with it. I don't care anymore. I'm starting to get frustrated. But I love watching it. Like one thing that I look for at the combine every year is like, especially among offensive linemen, is like how well, if you're a guard, I want to see like how well your hips move. Honestly, or even with tackles, they do like the little footwork drills. I love watching the offensive linemen. That is one of the things I'm going to miss the most. Minus the 40-yard dash times, which are always fun to watch, and you never know what you're going to see. Just ask Chris Jones. But I think I am going to miss seeing this year's combine. I can't wait for the numbers to come out. And yeah, I think athletes just keep getting more freakishly athletic, it seems like every year. Last year, we saw one of the fastest groups ever to come out and compete at the combine. I don't think we're going to see it nearly as fast group this year, but honestly, I was surprised last year, so who knows? But yeah, so we named a lot of offensive players here. As usual, this is like the second year or third year in a row. I've said this is a defensive draft. Last year was definitely a defensive draft. But no matter which side of the ball you like, I think this is going to be a great year for the combine. There are some athletic studs. The fact that Christian and I didn't repeat half the guys that are on our list is a pretty good sign. And I didn't even have Christian's running backs. They weren't even part of the 6 people that I was thinking about putting on this list because of how athletic some of these guys are and how great of careers they had in college. So you're definitely not going to want to miss. You're going to at least want to go look at these numbers, watch some of the highlights because I think they're going to put on a show for us as they do every single year. But yeah, so that's going to be the rest of the week. It's the NFL Combine. Christian and I won't be back until next week. I'm sure whether we do another episode about the Combine or not, I will at least mention it, I'm sure, at some point. So I hope you guys have a phenomenal weekend. I hope you enjoyed the show, and we'll see you next week.